There are no girls here. Okay, there was one. I stand to be corrected. So Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno. What's his surname? Bruno. Let me actually check my notes. I actually didn't actually do this. Let me see. Yes, Bruno Lopez or Bruno Lopes. I don't know how. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly. But yeah, Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno Lopes. Renier there is Lord. Jacoby by KO. um, okay, let's first look at Renier there is Lord is not even beating around the bushes. He's like, nah, nigga, he's going to get knocked out. Okay, I don't even know if I should even go through Jacoby's record because I know he's been facing pretty decent competition. But actually, let's go through it. Not all of it, but at the very least, the most recent record, just to see how he's performed. Okay, um, he drawed with Ian Kudelaba. Let's look at from 2012 is too far. Let's say 2020. He beat someone called Lebed. I don't know if I know any Lebed. And then he beat Grishin. I know. You guys can tell me who that is. He went to a split decision with what other a split draw with Ion Kutelaba. And then he then won via KO against Stewart. Let me actually check the details of this particular fight to be specific. My internet is twerking a little bit. I don't know why it's doing that. Yeah, Darren Stewart. Let's see, Darren Stewart. Okay, Darren Stewart has been losing a lot of his fight. Darren Stewart lost to a lot of people, man. Wow. Okay, let me not trash on this. Let's continue. He then beat what do you call him? Johan Allen. Let's see who Johan Allen is. Johan Allen also seems to have not won any fight in the UFC. And then he beat Oleksiejczuk. Is it Oleksiejczuk? Michal. He beat Michal. I don't know if it was at middleweight. I think I don't know. Was it at light heavyweight or at middleweight? And then these wins are a little bit more recent. He beat Dawoon Young, Dawoon Jong. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly. Um, I don't know how to feel about that particular win. Let's actually check Dawoon Jong's record. I apologize for messing it up. I mean, Dawoon Jong has been losing, man. I mean, he beat Kennedy Nzechukwu. That's something. But before, actually, the last win was actually Kennedy Nzechukwu. He then lost to Dustin Jacoby, lost to Clark, lost to Carlos Ulberg, lost to Umar Sai. So I don't know how to take that win. Lost to Khalil Roundtree Jr. Via split decision, and maybe that's not too bad of a loss. Obviously, basically because of Khalil Rountree's performance against Alex Pereira. But at the same time, when you look at it, Alex Pereira was not was ranked like number like was basically the champion when they fought. Um, and I don't know, there was a disparity in but you know what? Let's count that for Khalil Roundtree. His performance deserves a little bit more respect. Let me not do that. Lost to Azamat Muzikhanov, went to a decision. I mean, maybe it's a stylistic matchup, but it is what it is. Knocked out Kennedy Nzechukwu. That's a good win. Um, Lost to Alonso Manifield. I mean, Manifield is. I mean, he just recently won a war against a debutante. I know I picked that debutante, but still, it was a war. I don't know how to feel about that. Going to an unanimous decision with Alonso Manifield, especially Alonso Manifield not having cardio. Um, Dominic Reyes, he lost to Dominic Reyes. I mean, Dominic Reyes has been having a resurgence, so that's not a bad loss. Um, and then beat Vito Petrino. I don't really count that because he was losing that fight, and I feel like he won because of experience and not because of skill. Because Vito Petrino was actually winning that fight, so I wouldn't really count that win for Dustin Jacoby. It's a win, don't get me wrong, but it's more luck than it was skill. There's a difference between beating someone and you can see or know, like this guy beat him, right? And then there are those wins that you're like, if he didn't do that, you're gonna lose. So I feel like it's one of those things. I feel like Vito Petrino was winning that fight. Kind of a lucky shot. Yeah, Rene de Rizlot, it was kind of a lucky shot, man. That wasn't skill for me, so I can't really. Yeah, that's one of the things that I'm actually saying. For me, the win against Vito Petrino was not necessarily skill; it was luck for me. So I can't really count that win for him. So in all honesty, his record is not that impressive. But at the same time, he's faced pretty good competition. I mean, having a win over Canadian Zachuku is pretty commendable and honestly decent. So I just want to look at Bruno Lopez's record and just comparatively look at whether or not it makes. Okay, Bruno Lopez um, has only had one fight in the UFC as on a no. Let me see what's how does it is he on a streak? I'm not particularly sure. I'll have to check because the UFC did not list whether or not he's on a streak. But I think the Gadziasulov win is pretty impressive in my opinion. Magomed Gadziasulov, I think it was on the Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Hebus 2, if I'm not mistaken. It was the January card, right? And I think a lot of people, yeah, it was on the 12th of January 2025. A lot of people, including myself, were like, nah, man, Gadziasulov is going to run through him. And he actually won. You can debate how he did it, but he actually beat Gadziasulov, who a lot of people, including myself, felt like Gadziasulov was actually one of those guys, who are going to just come in and do whatever he wanted with Bruno Lopez, and he actually surprised a lot of us, right? So let's get to the actual breakdown of the fight itself. Um, Dustin Jacoby, number one, is past his prime. I know that at light heavyweight it doesn't mean as much, but the fact still remains. Let me actually check his age to be specific. He's closer to 40. Okay, he's like 36 years old, 36, 37, somewhere there. Not too bad, but still over the hill for me. He once again did not look good against Vito Petrino, and Vito Petrino is not a striker, and he still looked really bad in that particular fight up until the KO. So for me personally, it doesn't have the same weight, right? So let's go to the striking. I don't know who to favor. I know that Dustin Jacoby has a history as far as striking, kickboxing. He has a history in that particular field, but it hasn't really translated consistently, at least. In some fights, you can see that skill that you're like, okay, I can see the kickboxing background. And then in some fights, you're like, really? This guy is actually doing that to you. So it's a little bit confusing sometimes, but he's gonna have a bit of an advantage in this particular fight as far as reach. Not a big advantage because it's going to be like a 1.5 inch reach advantage, which is not too massive. But normally, if you watch my channel a lot, I'm going to favor the striker with a bit of a reach advantage. the flower of Scotland. Who are we talking about? We're breaking down Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno Lopez or Bruno Lopes. Then Bend, what up, bro? Where are you from? South Africa. Drake is no. We're talking about Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno Lopez. So I'm going to respond to everyone. Let me just get my thoughts out, and then we'll actually have a chat a little bit before I go on to the next fight. I'm sorry I was late. I still have two more fights to break down. So as far as power, finishing ability, I'd say both of them have like good finishing ability, but I think Bruno Lopez is a little bit more well-rounded than Dustin Jacoby, in my opinion. He has a good mix of submissions as well as TKOs. Um, so I don't know. When it comes to finishing abilities, I feel like both of them are more or less on the same level. However, if you want the specifics of who is a little bit further, Dustin Jacoby has a 70% finishing rate, whereas Bruno Lopez has a 79% finishing rate. And for Dustin Jacoby, I will say, even though I'm not picking him, to have a 70% finishing rate while he's had so many fights in the UFC is pretty impressive because it's not easy to finish UFC fighters. So for him to have a 70% finishing rate is actually quite impressive. As far as volume, that's where it worries me a little bit. I feel like Dustin Jacoby is going to have a massive advantage volume wise. Technical striking, I don't know, man. I just feel like he's not as impressive as he used to be. Maybe it has something to do with age. Maybe it has something to do with, um, I don't know, not taking his career a little bit more seriously than he should. I don't know, but he's not as impressive as he used to be. In some fights, he looks impressive. In some fights, he doesn't look as impressive. So as far as volume, I would lean towards Dustin Jacoby. I'm struggling to give him the technical striking advantage, but because of his background, because of his experience in the UFC, I'll give it to him. I'm just not too confident in that. As far as striking defense, I'm leaning towards Bruno Lopez. Maybe it's because of the fact that he knows how to mix up everything. So it's the Habib effect, basically. If you're scared I'm going to take you down, then the probability of you trying to be a little bit more aggressive against me is gonna be less, right? Which is what normally happens. If someone can grapple, usually the striker is not going to be as explosive or as dynamic as they normally are because they're avoiding getting caught, getting taken down. So yeah, on the feet, I don't know. I'd give a bit of an advantage to Dustin Jacoby, even though I feel like he's a little bit older now. Even though I feel like his defense is not that great. Even though I don't think his technical striking abilities are as impressive as they used to be, but I will still give him the advantage as far as the striking on the feet. Not a massive one, but it's still an advantage nonetheless. So if you were to tell me, um, if the fight was to stay on the feet, who would I favor? I would most likely say Dustin Jacoby. However, I don't think the fight is going to stay on the feet. The Dustin Jacoby has horrible takedown defense. Um, and the Bruno Lopez shoots a couple of takedowns that will probably frustrate Dustin Jacoby. The performance against um, Magom, I don't know, Gadzia Sulov basically is an eye opener for me because I genuinely didn't think this guy had a shot against Gadzia Sulov, and a lot of people didn't think that. That was actually one of the biggest upset on that card, right? So the win against Gadzia Sulov for me is quite impressive. Um, Also, Dustin Jacoby has horrible takedown defense. I mean, Bruno Lopez does not have to do much to actually take him down. Like, and especially if a UFC veteran has horrible takedown defense, just know that it's not gonna improve. It's not gonna change. Their hope to win the fight is to some. It's is either if their opponent somehow guesses out or they find a knockout. I don't think Dustin Jacoby in today's time is good enough to get a knockout. Unfortunately, I don't think Dustin Jacoby in today's time is going to be good enough to avoid getting taken down. So his only hope in this particular fight is to hope that Bruno Lopez somehow guesses out, which is unlikely because his last fight against Gatiasulov, he won via decision, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember that fight correctly. And that whether you felt like Lopez looked tired in that particular fight, it doesn't matter. The fact that he was able to get to the final bell, it shows that he has a little bit of a cardio to work with, right? So, for me personally, if Dustin Jacoby had good takedown defense, I would be like, I'm leaning more towards Jacoby. But combined with the fact that Jacoby does not have an impressive resume, despite the fact that he's been in the UFC for such a very long period of time, he's lost to all the best fighters. He's beaten a couple. Like his best win, in my opinion, is Kennedy Nzochuku. Right? That's his best win, in my opinion. Rene Deroslard, if Jacoby can stuff the takedowns, he will win. Bruno is sloppy on the feet and has been chinned by lower competition. I agree, right? He has been chinned by lower competition, but I'm not sure Jacoby stuffs the takedowns. Jacoby has horrible takedown defense. That's one of the reasons why I'm not picking him. He has horrible takedown defense, and I do believe that Bruno Lopez is going to be able to take down um, what do you call him, Dustin Jacoby. Because if you ask me, for example, if you ask me who would win in a fight between I think Magomed Gadjasulov versus Dustin Jacoby, I'm going to say Gadjasulov, right? Because I think Gadjasulov is better at striking. The mere fact that Bruno Lopez was able to actually win that fight is actually really impressive for me. So I'm going with Bruno Lopez. My subscribers who are performing exceptionally well um, are going with Dustin Jacoby. I might be mistaken. I'm not sure. You can always check the short section and the video section. But as far as I can remember, my subscribers are going with Dustin Jacoby. Bruno is a big, strong oof as well. Yeah, he is. So yeah, that basically concludes this breakdown. I'm going to go to the next fight, which is what fight am I breaking down next? Oh, Zachary Reese versus Dusko Tudorovic. So if you want to join me on the next breakdown I'm going to do, just click on the channel and then go to the live section. I'm going to break down the next fight right now. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Go through the entire channel: community section, video section, short section, live section. Every part of the channel is active. So if you want to join me, let's go to the next fight. Let me respond to your last few comments and then let's go break down the next fight. Bruno, oh, Rene the Reslord, I think Magomed is overrated. I don't, maybe he might be overrated, but as far as striking goes, I would pick him against Dustin Jacoby. Rene the Reslord, that was a piss poor performance against the Lopez, and he looked kind of mid against the Ribeiro. Yeah, but Ribeiro is a bit of a tank, man. I'm also worried about him versus Azamad Mirzukhanov, but I'll deal with that stress when I have to do breakdowns this Saturday. But for now, I'm going to the next fight. Zachary Reese versus Dusko Tudorovic. Reluctant Killer. What up, man? Let's go to the next dream, guys. There are two more fights that I need to be breaking down. And boxing. I'll see you guys on the next fight. Deuces.